yes, I had the Christian background in the Christian church, but there was also a lot of pain and hurt, in me and my family, generationally, things like that. So I know for me, I was exposed to masturbation at a young age, fell into incest because it was for my sister, things like that. And that brought shame, heavy shame, and me thinking I wasn't enough, me thinking I was gross, me thinking all these things, even not realizing when I was introduced, what it was until I saw my grandma's reaction. But unfortunately, it didn't stop. It didn't stop as we were still confused. So that kind of came in a little later. I feel like that was an open door that kind of led to a depression that didn't make any sense, in the sense of there was nothing that changed in my life, but for some reason there was nothing major, I should say. But maybe, I know my grandma passed away. I don't know if that made a difference, but it was like I couldn't find joy. I couldn't find true joy, true happiness. And I was just always craving for something to make me happy, but I would keep those feelings in. Like I said, I didn't open up. And then I struggled with sleep paralysis as well, starting in 7th grade. So all of that kind of grew, and I guess was kind of like in the background of my life. So when I say in college, when I, left the Christian schools, in the sense of like my friends who were pretty like similar to me in the sense of we're going to do what we're supposed to do and those things. I left my family. I was on my own. A lot of that emotional baggage was also carried with me. I did go to a Catholic university, so there was some religion in the sense of, people believed in Jesus for the most part, in a way. And, there was mass, and there was a big group of Protestant Christians, so I could go to church with them if I wanted, things like that. But I was seeking happiness, and my way of seeking that was, boys. I wanted to, look, there's all these options. They're starting to notice me. So relationships there. I started being around, on one end, people who didn't necessarily either believe in God at all, or, weren't really devoted either. So it was kind of like a interesting, I wouldn't say it was a falling away, but it was a mix of, it's kind of so weird, because I'll say, like, as I got into sophomore year, I joined a gospel choir because I wanted friends, and So at the time, I still believed in Jesus in a way, but at the same time, I'm going into a gospel choir, starting to attend Bible study because the gospel choir kind of does that as well. I'm also starting to go into the party scene. I'm also starting to be more interested in boys and doing things I never done before. So I kept some morals in the sense of, I didn't drink, but I went to the parties, was listening to that kind of music, grinding, all that stuff, dealing with the boys. And I went to Bible study and gospel choir. But it was like I went extreme on one end with in terms of immorality, I guess you could say, that I hadn't done before. And as well as the other end, I started attending more Christian things that I hadn't done before. Maybe because I missed chapel from Christian school, or like I started to miss going to church, even though historically I had never paid attention in church. So that's why it's a little confusing with that, but it was kind of a mix there.
Yeah, interesting. So Cody, it seems like that there was a void that happened in your life when your grandmother passed that ended up leaving that void, and then from there it seems like almost darkness creeped in slowly over your youth, opened those additional doors to you in terms for pornography and stuff like that, and now it's kind of followed you and evolved in a different way. But your spirit was still calling back to God, and you were trying to find ways to go back and reconcile back to Him. You just didn't know it at the time. It just seemed as almost there was a split, right? Like your body wanted to go and do the lusts of this world, but your spirit was saying, no, you got to go back, do what you were doing in the past. So that's interesting.
Yeah, it's actually interesting, because I know in my heart I wanted to obey God, I wanted to follow Him, but because I didn't know about having that relationship, I didn't know how really. I didn't have that full love passion to want to fully, like, I did it more like I'm supposed to versus I really want to. And I want to say with my grandma passing, I don't know. I think I was very, when she passed, I was very, I blamed myself, not for her passing, but how I treated her. And I think back to when I was a kid and she saw me, the first time, exposed to masturbation, that kind of also was playing part into the grief there. So
Mm.
I think that kind of set me off in a way as well, or in terms of like what you were saying, as well as, having the masturbation addiction and things like that. But yeah, I wanted to obey God. I was learning, I was learning certain things I was doing in my life, like the masturbation and things like that was wrong, but I didn't know how to stop doing that. At the same time, I watched, no shame to them because we're all figuring ourselves out, but I watched as other Christians were going to parties and things like that. So I thought, that's fine because, we're all loving Jesus, so it must be okay. It must be okay if you're drinking and grinding and listening, really bad music, things like that. So yeah, it was like I didn't know how, but I also thought some of the world would fulfill me, like having the men and things like that. So yes,
Mm.
what you were saying, just like, yeah, it was a confusing time for me for sure.